In 1987, a young boy named Alex vanished without a trace, leaving behind a heartbroken mother who refused to stop searching. For 3 decades, Evelyn Harper carried the heavy weight of unanswered questions, hoping for a miracle that seemed impossible. Then, one ordinary evening, as Evelyn watched Netflix, her heart stopped there, on the screen, was the adult face of her long-lost son. But how could this be? Determined to uncover the truth behind Alex's disappearance, Evelyn begins a desperate journey filled with shocking revelations and painful secrets. What really happened to Alex all those years ago? And can a mother's love overcome 30 years of hidden lies? It was a mild and quiet afternoon in Portland, Oregon. On April 15th, 1987, the gentle hum of suburban life drifted along shady streets lined with blooming cherry trees, their delicate pink petals falling softly onto the sidewalks. Evelyn Harper glanced through her kitchen window, watching her 8-year-old son, Alex, playing quietly in the backyard. Her lips curled into a gentle smile. Life had not always been easy for Evelyn, but moments like these small, peaceful, ordinary filled her heart with profound gratitude. Widowed at just 27 after a tragic car accident took her husband, she had learned to carry her sorrow quietly, bravely shouldering the responsibility of raising Alex alone. Their small home, painted a comforting shade of pale blue, was filled with memories, simple joy, and warmth. "Alex, honey, come inside. Lunch is ready," she called softly. The boy turned quickly, his golden curls catching sunlight as he ran. Inside, bursting through the screen door breathlessly, "What's for lunch, Mom?" His eyes sparkled with a gentle curiosity Evelyn loved so deeply. She smiled, tousling his hair. "Your favorite, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, of course." Alex beamed and settled at the table. His bright eyes quickly landed on a worn VHS tape resting nearby, the beloved movie to the Extraterrestrial. He pointed excitedly. "Can we watch it again tonight, Mom?" "Please?" Evelyn laughed gently, nodding as she set his plate down. "We've already watched it about 100 times, Alex." "I know," Alex admitted with a shy grin. "But I like it. It reminds me of Dad." Evelyn's heart softened at his words, tenderness mingled with bittersweet memories. She knelt beside him, gently stroking his hair. "All right, sweetheart. After dinner, we'll watch it again." The afternoon passed in a warm, pleasant blur of routine. Evelyn loved the simplicity of their days, the soft rustle of leaves, quiet laughter, the comforting creak of wooden floors beneath her feet as they tidied up the house. It was a life filled with quiet resilience and gentle love. As the clock struck 4, Evelyn started gathering scattered items around the living room. Alex entered quietly, holding the VHS tape in his small hands. "Mom, we have to return this to the video store today, remember?" Evelyn glanced out the window, noticing dark clouds rolling in. "It's starting to rain, Alex. Maybe we should wait until tomorrow. Please, Mom? I promised Mr. Peterson I'd bring it back today. It's just around the corner. I'll be careful, I promise." Evelyn hesitated, uneasy at letting him go out alone. But Alex's earnest eyes tugged at her heart. "All right," she sighed gently. "But you go straight there and come right back. No stopping, okay?" Alex nodded eagerly, grabbing his blue jacket and slipping it on quickly. "Thank you, Mom. I'll be super quick." He rushed to the door, paused briefly to wave, and smiled back warmly at Evelyn. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, Alex." And then the door gently closed behind him. Leaving the house silent and still once again, Evelyn busied herself around the kitchen, trying to distract the anxiety fluttering gently in her chest. Minutes passed slowly. She glanced at the clock several times, the ticking sound growing more pronounced with every passing second. 5 minutes turned into 15, then 20, and soon half an hour had passed. Unease grew steadily into genuine worry. The video store was close by. Alex should have been home by now. Evelyn stepped outside onto the porch, rain now pouring heavily, splattering against the pavement. "Alex?" She called loudly, shielding her eyes against the driving rain. "Only?" Silence answered her. Heart pounding, she grabbed her coat and hurried out, heading towards Peterson's video store. Her steps quickened with every breath. Panic started coiling within her as the shop finally came into view, its neon sign glowing dimly through the downpour. Pushing through the door, she called desperately, "Mr. Peterson? Alex?" The elderly man looked up, surprised. "Evelyn? Is everything okay? Is Alex here? He came to return the tape about half an hour ago." Mr. Peterson shook his head slowly, concern etched deeply into his face. "No, Evelyn. He hasn't been in at all today." A deep, gut-wrenching fear took hold of her. She dashed back into the stormy street, frantically calling Alex's name, her voice trembling with increasing desperation. Minutes stretched painfully into hours. Neighbors joined the search as darkness fell, their flashlights casting eerie beams through the rainy streets. Evelyn's breath became ragged, her body trembling with cold and panic. When the police finally arrived, their presence offered no comfort, only more unbearable dread. Detective Ramirez spoke calmly, but Evelyn could barely register his words as reality crumbled around her. Officers fanned out, canvassing the area, questioning neighbors. Evelyn stood rooted in agony, watching every face for a glimpse of her son, refusing to allow despair to win. Night deepened into early morning. Searches turned up nothing. Evelyn paced restlessly, desperately clutching onto fragile hope. The first hint of dawn broke over the horizon, bathing the now empty street in an unsettling quiet. "Mrs. Harper," Detective Ramirez approached gently. "You should rest. We'll continue searching at first light. I promise we won't stop until we find him." Evelyn could only nod numbly, unable to speak. She stumbled slowly back to her home now alien in its stillness. Every room whispered of Alex's laughter, his sweet presence painfully absent. She paused at the doorway to his bedroom, heart aching as she stepped inside. Everything sat perfectly in place, waiting innocently for his return. On his small bedside table lay a picture of them, smiling and carefree, holding the same tape he'd loved so much. Evelyn's trembling fingers traced the image lovingly. Morning came, bringing a cold sun and grim reality. She stepped outside once again, compelled to retrace Alex's final steps. The streets felt hollow now, echoes of happier days mocking her pain. She finally reached Peterson's video store again, now closed and silent. A stark reminder of her unimaginable loss. Stepping closer, Evelyn peered through the dusty windows, imagining Alex's small, eager figure rushing happily inside a memory now unbearably painful. She leaned heavily against the cold glass, tears silently streaming down her face, each one a desperate plea for answers. "I will find you, Alex," she whispered fiercely, her voice breaking under the weight of anguish. "No matter how long it takes, I will never stop looking for you." As her eyes drifted downward, her gaze landed upon something partially hidden by fallen leaves near the shop's entrance. Heart hammering, she knelt slowly, brushing away damp debris. Her hands trembled violently as she picked up the familiar VHS tape, E to the Extraterrestrial. Mud-spattered and wet, it felt cold and heavy in her grasp. A single anguished sob escaped her lips as she clutched it tightly to her chest. She stood there, utterly broken yet defiant, holding on to that one tangible fragment of her beloved son, his favorite movie. The streets around her fell quiet once again, leaving only her whisper to echo softly in the silent, empty morning air. "I promise you, Alex, I'll never give up until you're home." In the blink of an eye, weeks became months, months became years, and before Evelyn Harper could fully grasp it, decades slipped quietly by. Her once lively home in the peaceful suburbs of Portland now carried an air of gentle sadness. The rooms had gradually grown darker, quieter, like faded photographs tucked away in forgotten albums. From the very first day Alex vanished, Evelyn had anchored her heart to a singular promise to never, ever stop searching. But time, relentless and indifferent, wore her down like a persistent tide against stone. Her beautiful auburn curls became streaked with gray. Fine lines of sorrow carved themselves permanently around her eyes. Yet, the determination that burned within her never flickered out, even as her body and spirit bore scars from countless false hopes. Each time the phone rang unexpectedly, Evelyn felt a rush of adrenaline, a desperate, fluttering hope that perhaps this was finally the call that would reunite her with her precious Alex. But these moments always ended the same way. Another cruel prank. Another lead that dissolved into nothing. Another crushing disappointment. She traveled to neighboring towns and distant cities following vague reports from strangers who believed they'd spotted a blonde-haired boy resembling Alex. With each journey, her heart fluttered nervously, her hands clutching tightly to that old VHS tape Alex once loved, her eternal symbol of hope. Yet, every return trip home was marked by heartbreak and exhaustion. The relentless pattern drained Evelyn's spirit, slowly shaping her into someone withdrawn, quiet, and introspective. She eventually retired from the small local library, no longer able to face the sympathetic eyes of neighbors or answer the gentle but relentless questions about her lost son. Her daily routine became subdued, almost invisible. She found comfort in solitude, carefully preserving Alex's untouched bedroom as a shrine to memory and hope. Years passed in their muted rhythm, and the world outside changed drastically. Computers arrived, the internet transformed society, and video stores gave way to streaming services. But Evelyn remained stubbornly stuck in 1987. Her VHS player sat proudly in the living room, always ready, the tape of Eat kept neatly beside it, waiting for Alex's return. In stark contrast, miles away in glittering Hollywood, another life was unfolding quietly at first, then rapidly gaining momentum. A young man named Jordan Reed emerged onto the cinematic landscape, quietly charismatic, deeply talented, and irresistibly mysterious. Critics praised him for his powerful performances, yet behind his captivating eyes lingered a haunting melancholy that audiences found compelling. No one knew that beneath Jordan's public facade lay a constant struggle to understand his fragmented memories and unsettling dreams. Filled with rainstorms, a blurry VHS tape, and a face he couldn't quite recognize. Behind Jordan's growing success stood a powerful, enigmatic figure, the celebrated Hollywood director Paul Morrison. Morrison was famous for discovering unknown talents, molding young actors into legendary stars. Yet, those close to him whispered rumors of manipulation and secrecy. Stories often silenced by Morrison's wealth and influence, but in her distant world, Evelyn knew none of this. For her, life had narrowed into quiet routine, morning walks through Portland's misty streets, afternoons tending her small garden, and evenings filled with the soft flicker of the television, her only company. Through endless nights, on a cold and drizzly evening in 2017, 30 years since Alex had disappeared, Evelyn found herself sitting alone in her dimly lit living room, the flickering glow from the television casting soft shadows against the faded wallpaper. wrapping a knitted shawl around her shoulders. She absently clicked through the endless options on Netflix, now her nightly companion. She rarely paid much attention to what played, simply seeking distraction from the persistent ache of loss. A movie title appeared quietly in the endless scroll, Home Video. Its simplicity caught her attention for reasons she couldn't understand. Without much thought, she selected it and settled back onto her worn sofa, sipping lukewarm tea as the opening credits began. The film opened quietly, the camera following a man in his late 30s through ordinary routines. The actor's back remained mostly turned, creating an initial air of mystery. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly as she noticed something oddly familiar. The posture, the subtle gestures, the sandy blonde hair. Her heart began to beat faster. As the camera finally revealed the actor's face clearly, Evelyn's teacup crashed violently to the wooden floor, shattering into pieces as hot tea spilled across the rug. Her breath stuck sharply in her throat, heart pounding as shock overwhelmed every fiber of her body. There, unmistakably illuminated on her television screen, was the face she had dreamed of every night for 30 years, the face of her precious son, Alex, now fully grown. Her body shook uncontrollably. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her vision blurring from disbelief and overwhelming emotion. She fumbled desperately for the remote control, pausing the scene to stare, unblinking, at the image before her. Evelyn felt her heart splintering anew, overwhelmed by joy, confusion, and raw grief. "Alex, it's you," she whispered brokenly, fingertips trembling as they reached out to touch the screen. She stared deeply into his eyes, now older, but filled with that same gentle vulnerability she remembered. Yet beneath that familiarity lay something profoundly different, something haunted, something changed. Questions flooded her mind. How had he survived? Why hadn't he found her? Where had he been? For hours she sat frozen, replaying that single scene again and again, her heart unraveling with each view. As dawn crept through her window, Evelyn's grief transformed into fierce, unwavering determination. She began desperately researching everything she could find about the film, discovering Jordan Reed, a successful but enigmatic actor, and Paul Morrison, his mentor and director. Digging deeper, unease grew within her. There was something unsettling about Morrison, something she couldn't yet understand. Fueled by urgency and maternal instinct, Evelyn knew she couldn't wait any longer. She had waited 3 decades. She would not waste another moment. With a surge of energy, she hastily booked a flight to Los Angeles. Her hands trembled as she packed a small bag, her mind a whirlwind of plans and hopes and anxieties. Before leaving her house, she stepped briefly into Alex's untouched bedroom. Her heart ached at the sight of his small bed and childhood belongings, preserved exactly as they'd been decades earlier. Without hesitation, Evelyn carefully tucked the worn VHS tape of E.T. into her suitcase, her enduring reminder of him, a token of her relentless love. Within hours, she found herself at the bustling Portland airport. The noise and lights around her seemed surreal, almost dreamlike. She felt a strange blend of fear and courage surging inside her chest, guiding her forward. As the boarding announcement echoed overhead, Evelyn's heart raced. This journey felt like both a hopeful beginning and a daunting leap into the unknown. Standing at the boarding gate, she paused briefly, gripping her ticket tightly, her eyes filling once more with tears. For 30 years, she had waited, longed, prayed, and searched. Now, finally, fate had given her a sign. Alex was alive, and she would not stop until she understood every detail of what had happened. Until she finally held him in her arms again. Evelyn took a deep breath, steeled herself, and stepped determinedly onto the plane. ready to unravel the truth of a mystery that had haunted her entire adult life. As the aircraft slowly lifted off into the early morning sky, she clutched tightly at the seat's armrests, whispering softly to herself and perhaps to Alex, wherever he might be, "Hold on, sweetheart. I'm coming." Stepping out of the bustling terminal at Los Angeles International Airport, Evelyn Harper felt like she'd landed on another planet. Everything around her felt massive, overwhelming, and alien. The bright California sun beat down on her pale skin, causing her to shield her eyes as she tried to find her bearings. The chaotic rush of cars, taxis, and shuttles blurred together into an intimidating symphony of noise and confusion. Evelyn took a deep, shaky breath, gripping tightly the handle of her small suitcase, her knuckles whitening with tension. She had never traveled this far from home. The quiet streets of suburban Portland felt impossibly distant now, replaced by this sprawling maze of unfamiliar avenues and anonymous faces. But nothing, not fear nor uncertainty, could stop her from the task ahead. Her purpose was crystal clear. She had to find Alex. Her heart wouldn't rest until she saw him again, face to face. Settling into a modest motel in downtown Los Angeles, Evelyn wasted no time. Using every resource she could, newspapers, magazines, and the internet on her unfamiliar smartphone, she pieced together Alex's current life under his stage name, Jordan Reed. Her heart swelled with pride mixed painfully with sorrow as she read about his career. He had risen steadily, starring in a series of critically acclaimed films. Each photograph she saw of him, now grown and poised, deepened her longing to hold him close again. Within days, Evelyn learned of an upcoming event, a gala promoting Alex's latest film. Tickets were limited, but she spent her small savings without hesitation to secure entry. On the night of the event, dressed simply in her best outfit, Evelyn stood nervously outside the luxurious Hollywood venue. Her heart hammered against her. Ribs, palms sweaty, pulse racing with anxious anticipation. Inside, the venue glittered like a dream. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, beautiful people mingled effortlessly, and champagne flowed freely. Evelyn felt painfully out of place among this glamour, her simple attire standing out awkwardly among gowns and suits that surely cost more than she earned in a year. But suddenly, a hush filled the crowded room, signaling his arrival. Evelyn's breath caught sharply in her throat. Alex now, Jordan Reed, entered the hall, smiling politely and shaking hands with important-looking strangers. Evelyn felt her body trembling uncontrollably as tears welled in her eyes. He was handsome, poised, confident, yet she could still see faint traces of the little boy she once held in her arms. She watched him move gracefully through the crowd, his warm yet reserved smile carefully masking deeper emotions. Her heart ached fiercely. Was this man really the boy she'd searched for every waking moment of her life? Summoning every ounce of courage, Evelyn gently approached Alex as he briefly stepped away to a quieter corner. Her heart was in her throat, her breath short and shallow. "Mr. Reed?" She began quietly, voice shaking slightly. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but your film home video touched me deeply." Alex turned calmly toward her, offering a gentle, practiced smile that showed no recognition. "Thank you very much," he replied warmly. His voice was deeper now, confident and mature. "I'm glad it moved you. It was a special film for me." Evelyn desperately searched his eyes for any spark of familiarity, any sign he remembered her face, but there was nothing. Just polite, distant kindness. "Could I ask, what inspired your performance?" she asked softly, almost pleadingly. He hesitated briefly, then smiled gently, somewhat guarded. "My father always inspired me. He taught me everything I know about acting, about life, The words stung her deeply, her heart shattering silently inside her chest. His father. Evelyn felt suddenly dizzy, barely maintaining her composure. She managed to whisper a faint, "Thank you," before stepping back into the shadows, fighting tears that threatened to spill over in front of everyone. She watched silently as Alex was whisked away by event organizers, her heart shattered yet again by disappointment. That night, back in her motel room, Evelyn sat numbly at the small desk, mind racing. Who was this father Alex spoke of so reverently? Anger and confusion welled within her, and she resolved to uncover the truth behind the mysterious Paul Morrison, the man who now loomed over Alex's life. Days turned to weeks as Evelyn discreetly dug deeper into Morrison's past. The charismatic director was well respected, but whispers of controversy followed him. Former actors spoke in vague terms of Morrison's controlling behavior, his strange methods, and his obsessive secrecy. Unease grew within Evelyn as she wondered what role Morrison truly played in Alex's disappearance. Driven by instinct, she tracked down Morrison's ex-wife, Rebecca, now living quietly on the outskirts of the city. When Evelyn cautiously approached Rebecca at her modest home, the older woman seemed hesitant at first, but her reluctance faded when Evelyn explained who she was. "You're his mother?" Rebecca gasped softly, sympathy evident in her tired eyes. "Oh dear." Rebecca invited her inside, offering a cup of tea that Evelyn accepted gratefully, her hands trembling as they talked. Slowly, Rebecca revealed troubling details about her ex-husband's past. Morrison had always sought young, talented children, molding them obsessively into stars. His fixation bordered on unhealthy, even dangerous. Paul kept boxes of letters and notes from years ago. Rebecca confided hesitantly, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He never let me see them, but after our divorce, I found a few hidden away." She paused, seemingly struggling internally, before rising and retrieving an old box from her closet, placing it carefully in front of Evelyn. "Perhaps you'll find answers here," Rebecca murmured gently, her eyes clouded with regret. "I was afraid of him, but you deserve the truth." Alone later in her motel room, Evelyn pored through the old letters, her heart racing. The pages were faded, handwriting hurried and obsessive. Hours passed as she examined each note until finally her fingers touched a letter marked simply, April 1987. As she read the fragile pages, horror slowly filled her soul. Morrison described his plan in chilling detail, how he had carefully chosen Alex after secretly observing him, how he planned to raise him as his own son, to transform him into a star. Evelyn's breath caught sharply as she read Morrison's cruel justification. "The boy's father is gone. His mother won't understand the greatness I can give him. Alex will believe I am his true father, the only father he needs." Her vision blurred with tears, trembling hands clutching the damning letter. Evelyn finally understood the heartbreaking truth. Paul Morrison had kidnapped her son, manipulated him, and deceived Alex into believing that Morrison was his true father. Alex, her beloved boy, had grown up entirely unaware of his real past, unaware of her, unaware of everything she had endured for decades. The cruelty of Morrison's actions overwhelmed her, grief mixing with fierce, burning anger. Evelyn clutched the letter tightly to her chest, feeling her heart pounding painfully within her. The horrifying reality was clear now. Alex genuinely believed Paul Morrison, the man who had stolen him, raised him, and lied to him for decades, was his real father. Tears streamed down Evelyn's cheeks as she sank onto the motel bed, shaking uncontrollably. But amidst the despair and horror, a fierce resolve filled her heart once again. Evelyn knew now exactly what she must do. She would confront Morrison, no matter how powerful he was, no matter the cost. She would free Alex from the lies that had chained him for so long. Her son needed the truth, and she would stop at nothing to ensure he received it. Evelyn's modest motel room transformed into a makeshift investigative office. Papers, notes, and photographs filled every surface, her sleepless eyes tirelessly scanning each detail, determined to prove the truth about Paul Morrison. Her hands shook slightly from exhaustion, but she pushed through, unwilling to lose momentum now. Her discovery of Morrison's letter had been painful but essential, a very clear confirmation of his monstrous actions. Days turned into sleepless nights as Evelyn immersed herself in uncovering Morrison's past. She discovered troubling accounts from former child actors who had worked under his guidance. Online forums whispered disturbing stories of isolation, emotional manipulation, and obsessive control. Each revelation deepened Evelyn's dread, confirming her worst fears. Morrison was no mere mentor. He was a predator disguised as a savior. As Evelyn unraveled Morrison's hidden life, memories Alex had long forgotten began to haunt him with growing intensity. In his luxurious Hollywood apartment, Alex awoke repeatedly from the same unsettling dream, heavy rain pouring relentlessly, the soft crackle of an old VHS tape playing, and a distant voice calling desperately through the storm, a voice that felt deeply familiar yet agonizingly out of reach. The dreams left him shaken, anxious, and questioning. He shared none of this with Morrison, sensing instinctively his mentor would dismiss his concerns or twist them further. Yet privately, Alex grappled with feelings of isolation, confusion, and creeping doubt about the life Morrison had crafted for him. Determined to reach Alex again, Evelyn tracked his routine carefully, awaiting an opportunity. Late one afternoon, she finally found her chance when Alex stepped out of a quiet cafe, sunglasses shielding his tired eyes from curious gazes. Evelyn approached softly, her heart racing with apprehension. "Alex, I mean. Jordan," she quickly corrected, voice trembling slightly. "I don't mean to disturb you again, but please. There's something I'd like you to have." Alex paused warily, recognizing the woman from the gala. "You again?" he questioned, polite caution coloring his tone. "What do you want?" Evelyn reached into her purse slowly, producing a worn, slightly faded VHS tape of E. the Extraterrestrial. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she handed it to him gently. "It's just a gift. A reminder of something you might have forgotten." Alex's fingers brushed against the tape hesitantly. Something stirred inside him, a strange sense of familiarity mingled with unease. He stared silently at the worn cover, memories flickering just beyond his conscious reach. "Why are you doing this?" he finally whispered, confusion and suspicion evident in his voice. "Because you deserve the truth," Evelyn replied softly, her eyes pleading desperately with his. "No matter how much it hurts." Without another word, Evelyn turned and disappeared into the crowded sidewalk, leaving Alex standing alone, gripping the tape tightly, his heart heavy with questions he couldn't yet answer. Back in her motel room, Evelyn intensified her efforts. She delved deeper into Morrison's life, discovering disturbing records of young actors suddenly disappearing from Hollywood after working briefly with him. Though discreetly handled and never widely publicized, these incidents formed a clear and terrifying pattern. Each child Morrison had discovered endured a strange kind of transformation, manipulated to erase their past and isolate them completely. Meanwhile, Alex wrestled with the persistent nightmares triggered by the mysterious tape Evelyn had given him. Each viewing intensified his anxiety. Scenes from the film resonated deeply, awakening vague, fragmented memories that made him question everything he thought he knew about himself. One rainy evening, Evelyn confronted Paul Morrison directly. The director's Hollywood mansion loomed. Large and intimidating, its grandeur echoing the power Morrison wielded. Summoning courage, Evelyn knocked firmly on the ornate wooden door. Morrison himself answered, his polished appearance masking the surprise in his eyes as he recognized her instantly. "Mrs. Harper." Morrison greeted calmly, his voice cool yet dangerously controlled. "I've been expecting you." "You stole my son," Evelyn accused fiercely, her voice shaking with a mix of rage and grief. "I have proof letters, testimonies from those you've harmed. I know everything." Morrison's expression hardened slightly, the facade of polite composure momentarily faltering. "You misunderstand, Evelyn," he said quietly, his tone menacingly soft. "Alex was meant for greatness. You couldn't offer him what I did. Look at him now. He's a star, beloved by millions. You robbed him of his real life." Evelyn's voice cracked painfully. "He doesn't even know who he truly is." "Perhaps," Morrison said smoothly, stepping closer, eyes cold and calculating. "But if you persist, understand this. I will ensure you never see Alex again." His words, chillingly calm, sent a ripple of fear through Evelyn. Yet her resolve remained firm, even as Morrison's threat hung heavily in the air. "You won't get away with this," she whispered fiercely, turning away abruptly, heart pounding as she retreated into the safety of the night. Morrison, agitated by Evelyn's interference, immediately plotted to separate Alex from potential revelations. He arranged a sudden film project overseas, determined to isolate Alex further, removing him from Evelyn's reach and any lingering doubts that haunted. His PROTE dot back at her motel, Evelyn, shaken but resolute, knew time was running out. She intensified her search desperately, scouring every fragment of evidence she had gathered. Late into the night, exhaustion weighing heavily upon her, she sifted through dozens of tapes and photographs from Rebecca, Morrison's ex-wife. Suddenly, buried beneath old audition tapes, Evelyn discovered something labeled simply, "Alex, April 1987. Her heart froze, fingers trembling violently as she carefully inserted the tape into an old VCR she'd borrowed. The image flickered to life, grainy and aged. Evelyn gasped softly as she recognized the younger face of Morrison appearing on screen. He stood in a thin, dimly lit room, clearly agitated, addressing the camera directly. "It's April 15th, 1987. I took the boy, Alex Harper, today. He's perfect, bright, talented, vulnerable. I'll mold him carefully, erase all ties to his past. Soon, he'll believe I'm his father. He'll become the greatest star this industry has ever known." Evelyn's breath caught painfully in her throat, tears streaming silently down her face as Morrison's cold confession continued. "No one will suspect me. His mother has nothing. She can't offer him the future I can. Soon, Alex Harper won't exist. Only Jordan Reed will remain." The screen went blank. Evelyn stared numbly at the static-filled television, the undeniable evidence shaking her deeply. Morrison's ruthless admission filled her with profound horror, sadness, and rage, but alongside that pain emerged fierce, unbreakable determination. Evelyn finally held definitive proof of Morrison's monstrous deeds, proof powerful enough to free Alex and reveal the truth. Clutching the tape tightly, Evelyn's hands trembled, knowing the confrontation ahead would be dangerous, perhaps even deadly, but she refused to retreat. She had waited 30 years, suffered countless heartbreaks, and now the moment had arrived to reclaim her son from the cruel lies of Paul Morrison. Evelyn rose unsteadily to her feet, steeling herself for the coming battle. Her heart pounded with fierce determination. She would confront Morrison directly, no matter the cost, no matter the danger. holding the precious tape close to her chest. Evelyn whispered softly, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within. "Hold on, Alex. I'm coming for you." Evelyn knew she was running out of time. Her heart pounded anxiously as she searched for Alex, the precious videotape concealed safely in her bag. Every minute felt like an eternity as she navigated the unfamiliar streets of Los Angeles, desperate to reach her son before Morrison whisked him overseas. She tracked down Alex's apartment complex late that evening. The building was luxurious yet impersonal, glass and metal shining coldly beneath bright city lights. Taking a deep breath, Evelyn entered quietly, her fingers trembling as she pressed the button beside Alex's name on the intercom. "Yes?" Alex's familiar voice crackled through the speaker, deep and cautious. "Please." "Alex, it's Evelyn. It's urgent. I need to speak to you, please." A heavy silence hung in the air before finally, reluctantly, he buzzed her in. Her heart thundered as she took the elevator up, rehearsing her words, hoping she could reach him this time. Alex stood, waiting in his doorway, arms crossed defensively, eyes wary and skeptical. He stepped aside, silently gesturing for her to enter. Inside, Evelyn steadied herself, facing her son with a gentle yet resolute expression. "What do you want now?" Alex asked, voice tense. "What's so urgent?" "Alex, please listen." Carefully, Evelyn began, her voice trembling slightly, eyes brimming with emotion. "I know this sounds impossible, but I'm your mother, your real mother. Paul Morrison kidnapped you when you were 8. He lied to you. He isn't your father." Alex stiffened immediately, eyes blazing with sudden anger and confusion. "This again? You're insane." His voice rose sharply, strained with disbelief and hurt. "My father raised me. He's the reason I'm successful. How dare you accuse him of something like this?" "I have proof, Alex," Evelyn pleaded desperately. "Letters, a tape with his confession. Please, you must believe me. Morrison stole you from me, erased your memories, lied to you. Enough." Alex shouted, furious tears glistening in his eyes. "I won't listen to this. You're lying, you're obsessed. Leave now." His harsh rejection cut deeply into Evelyn's heart, but she knew pushing him further would only cause more pain. Silently, her eyes filled with tears, she handed him a small card with her number. "When you're ready, call me. I'll always be waiting." Heartbroken, Evelyn left quietly, her soul aching with profound sorrow. Behind the closed door, Alex stood shaking, emotions swirling wildly inside him. Despite his angry denial, doubts gnawed at his mind, fueled by those relentless nightmares and that haunting VHS tape Evelyn had given him. His head pounded with confusion, fear, and anger. Everything he'd believed his entire life now felt dangerously fragile. Unable to rest, Alex drove directly to Morrison's estate, confronting him in a trembling rage. Morrison received him calmly in his study, appearing unsurprised by Alex's agitated arrival. "Is something wrong, Jordan?" Morrison asked smoothly, his composed voice betraying nothing. "Who is Evelyn Harper?" Alex demanded, his voice quivering with emotion. "She claims she's my mother, that you kidnapped me. Tell me the truth, Paul." Morrison's eyes narrowed briefly, quickly regaining his calm facade. He approached Alex slowly, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder, voice dripping with soothing manipulation. "Oh, Alex, I feared this would happen someday. Evelyn Harper is a deeply troubled woman, obsessed with you for years. She fabricated this absurd story, trying desperately to insert herself into your life." Alex stepped back uncertainly, his mind spinning, Morrison's words tangling painfully with Evelyn's earnest pleas. "Jordan, you know me. Would I lie to you?" "Morrison." pressed gently, voice convincingly paternal. "Trust me, son. Evelyn is dangerous. Forget her." Alex left Morrison's estate more confused and upset than ever. Yet, a tiny voice inside him refused to dismiss Evelyn completely. Her earnest eyes, her quiet desperation, tugged at something deep and undeniable within him. Meanwhile, Evelyn, refusing defeat, prepared her final move. She arranged to meet Morrison at an abandoned studio in Burbank, the same location he'd secretly used to train Alex decades before. It was late evening, shadows long and eerie in the derelict building. Evelyn arrived early, cautiously setting her phone to secretly record their conversation, hoping desperately her plan would work. Soon Morrison appeared, striding confidently into the dimly lit room. Evelyn stood firm, heart racing, voice steady. Despite her fear, "It's over, Morrison," she declared defiantly. "Alex knows. Your lies can't protect you any longer." Morrison laughed coldly, arrogance glittering dangerously in his eyes. "You think Alex believes your pathetic lies?" He sneered mockingly. "He trusts me completely. He'll never choose you, a weak, broken woman, over the man who made him." "A star, you stole my son," Evelyn cried fiercely, voice echoing painfully through the empty studio. "You kidnapped him, erased his memories, manipulated him. How could you do something so monstrous?" Morrison's facade cracked slightly, his composure slipping into uncontrolled anger. "You couldn't understand." He spat viciously. "Alex was nothing when I found him a nobody. I made him great. I gave him purpose, power, fame, things you never could." As Morrison's furious confession poured out unchecked, neither noticed Alex silently slipping into the shadows near the studio's entrance, drawn irresistibly by a desperate need for the truth. He stood frozen, horrified, hearing Morrison's cruel admission clearly. "Alex believes me because I shaped him from nothing," Morrison declared arrogantly, unaware of the hidden witness. "I gave him a life far better than your pitiful existence could offer. Do you really think your pathetic attempts will change anything?" Evelyn held her ground bravely, eyes narrowed with determination, fingers secretly gripping her phone tightly. Her heart swelled painfully at Morrison's cruel arrogance, but she knew this was the undeniable evidence she needed. Suddenly, Morrison turned sharply, eyes widening as he spotted Alex standing motionless nearby, pale and visibly shaken. "Alex Jordan, what are you doing here?" Morrison stammered, his confidence abruptly shattered. Alex's voice trembled with rage and hurt. "So, it's true. Everything she said. You lied to me all these years?" Morrison tried desperately to recover control. "Alex, please, it's complicated." "You must understand." But Alex stepped back, disgust clear on his face. "You kidnapped me, lied, made me believe you were my father. How could you?" Panicked, Morrison bolted suddenly, attempting to escape. But the sudden sound of sirens filled the air, lights flashing brightly as police cars surrounded the building. Officers stormed inside, swiftly apprehending Morrison as he shouted frantic, futile denials dotted the aftermath. Silence enveloped the empty studio. Morrison was dragged away, screaming threats and curses. Evelyn stood trembling, heart pounding with relief and lingering fear, her gaze slowly turning toward Alex Dot for a long moment. Mother and son simply stared at each other across the empty space, emotions swirling deeply, silently between them. Evelyn's eyes shone with longing, hope, and cautious joy. Alex stood rigid, emotionally shattered, eyes glistening with uncertainty, disbelief, and fragile recognition. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, raw with vulnerability, Alex asked hesitantly, his words hanging delicately in the charged silence, "So, are you really my mother?" The words lingered heavily in the air between Alex and Evelyn. Alex's quiet question had cut deeply into the silence, carrying with it the fragile hope and overwhelming confusion of a man who'd lost his past and now stood facing the truth. Evelyn took a cautious step toward him, her voice gentle, trembling with emotion. "Yes, Alex, I am your mother." A sob rose sharply from Alex's chest, his stoic expression finally crumbling beneath the weight of reality. Evelyn reached for him instinctively, cautiously placing her trembling hand on his shoulder. He flinched slightly but did not pull away. The following days passed slowly, like a blurred dream. Morrison's trial captured the world's attention, becoming a media frenzy. Evelyn and Alex remained mostly hidden, quietly observing the whirlwind from a safe distance. Morrison's secrets were publicly exposed, the chilling details of his manipulations laid bare for all to witness. The revelations sparked furious debate about abuses in the entertainment industry, resonating deeply with those who had silently suffered under similar circumstances. Throughout this turmoil, Alex grappled privately with an identity crisis. Nights were the hardest, his sleep tormented by memories, both genuine and implanted. Morrison's falsehoods clashed painfully against fleeting glimpses of his true past. He'd wake in a cold sweat, heart racing, feeling Evelyn's gentle presence. Reassuringly close, their initial conversations were cautious, hesitant, carefully avoiding delicate subjects. But slowly, trust began building, and they began confronting the deep emotional wounds left by 30 years apart. One quiet afternoon, Evelyn carefully laid out old photo albums across a table, inviting Alex to join her. Together, they silently studied faded images of Alex's childhood birthday parties, family picnics, Christmas mornings. Each picture unlocked fragments of buried memories. Alex traced his younger face, tears gently streaming down his cheeks, recalling lost moments of innocence and joy. Evelyn spoke softly, voice thick with emotion, recounting gentle stories from their past. She told Alex about his father, describing the tender man who adored his son dearly. Each story offered Alex another precious piece of himself. Gradually, their bond deepened as the walls between them slowly crumbled, replaced by cautious warmth and genuine affection. One evening, as the sunset bathed their small motel room in golden hues, Alex asked quietly, "Could we go home to Portland? I'd like to see it again." Evelyn's heart swelled painfully with joy. "Of course," she replied tenderly, squeezing his hand reassuringly. "It's still there. I kept everything just as you left it." The return to Portland was emotional, bittersweet, and powerful. As they stepped onto familiar streets, each corner whispered forgotten stories. Evelyn watched Alex silently as memories stirred visibly beneath the surface, his expression shifting between grief, confusion, and fragile happiness. Together, they stood before the small house Evelyn had preserved so faithfully. The pale blue paint had weathered slightly, the garden still carefully tended. Alex hesitated at the threshold, emotion flickering in his eyes. "It's exactly the same," he whispered hoarsely. "Welcome home, Alex," Evelyn murmured, voice breaking gently. Inside, Alex's eyes widened at the unchanged rooms, the sofa where they'd cuddled, watching movies, the kitchen where Evelyn had prepared countless meals, each room frozen lovingly in time. Slowly, they reached Alex's childhood bedroom. Evelyn gently pushed open the door, revealing a room untouched since 1987. Alex stepped inside, heart pounding as he touched familiar toys, books, and drawings, each item awakening clearer memories. On a small desk, carefully arranged, was his childhood backpack and a baseball glove, both bearing traces of happy, distant afternoons. His gaze settled upon something deeply familiar, a small, handmade card preserved carefully on his bedside table. It read simply, "I love you, Mom. signed clumsily in his childish handwriting. Alex picked it up tenderly, eyes filling with tears. Real memories flooded back vividly. His mother's gentle laughter, her comforting hugs, the warmth of their bond before tragedy had ripped it apart. That evening, neighbors and old friends quietly gathered at Evelyn's house to celebrate Alex's return. The small home filled with warmth and laughter as they shared memories of the boy they'd never forgotten. Later, under a gentle moonlight, Evelyn and Alex joined a candlelit vigil outside the now-closed video store where he'd vanished. Each flickering candle symbolizing the community's long-awaited healing. With tears in his eyes, Alex thanked Evelyn for never giving up. Back home, he placed their worn ETVH into the player. Mother and son sat side by side, the familiar music enveloping them as Alex rested his head on Evelyn's shoulder. In that quiet moment, Alex's true memories returned, and the falsehoods faded away. He looked at her with gratitude and whispered, "Mom, I remember everything." Evelyn's heart finally found peace, and together they embraced a hopeful new beginning.